Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from the Pro Revenge subreddit from BB Keys, who says the HOA president's long goodbye. It starts, posting on behalf of a friend who isn't on Reddit. This is for you, Jake. When I moved into my suburban neighborhood, I expected peace and quiet. Instead, I walked into a petty dictatorship run by our HOA president, Todd. Todd was the worst kind of leader, the kind who loved power but hated accountability. He enforced ridiculous rules like fining people $200 for leaving their trash cans out a minute past 9 a.m., but blatantly ignored the rules when it suited him. His own yard was a mess of unpermitted structures, and his fence was taller than allowed by city ordinances. But Todd's true sin? Using the HOA as his personal piggy bank. At first, I tried reasoning with him. My fence was slightly off color because the approved stain wasn't available, and he fined me $500. I explained, provided receipts, and asked for leniency. Todd smirked, said, "Rules are rules," and walked away. That's when I decided I would take him down, not with screaming or public arguments, but methodically, legally, and in a way he'd never recover from. Step 1. Become the inside man. Todd's first mistake was underestimating me. I volunteered for the HOA board under the guise of wanting to get involved in the community. I played the part of the eager, naive newbie perfectly. For 2 years I attended every meeting, quietly observing how Todd operated. I learned how he controlled the board by bullying other members and burying them in paperwork. He'd push through votes when his only allies were present and conveniently lose paperwork submitted by dissenting homeowners. I kept my head down, took detailed notes and waited. My goal was to outlast his term as president so I could begin making changes. Then I discovered Todd's second mistake. He wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. Step 2. Follow the money. Todd loved to brag about how he kept the HOA's finances in order. But something didn't add up. The annual HOA fees were high, much higher than in similar neighborhoods, but the common areas were falling apart. The pool was closed half the summer due to maintenance issues, and the landscaping looked like it hadn't been touched in months. I started digging. As the HOA's treasurer, Todd had access to all the accounts, but he was notoriously cagey about sharing financial details. I asked for the budget during a meeting, and Todd laughed it off, saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." I filed a formal request for the financial records, which, under HOA rules, he was required to provide. Weeks went by with no response. That's when I started talking to neighbors. Turns out, I wasn't the only one suspicious. Over a dozen homeowners had requested access to the budget over the years, only to be ignored. One neighbor claimed Todd had used HOA funds to install a patio at his house, while another swore he'd seen Todd's kids at the community pool during its maintenance closure. Armed with these suspicions, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board, forcing Todd to provide the records. He stalled, but I wasn't backing down. Step 3. Build the case. When Todd finally handed over the financial documents, they were a mess. Invoices were missing, payments were mislabeled, and some expenses were downright bizarre. A $15,000 landscaping fee paid to a company that didn't exist. Thousands spent on administrative costs with no explanation. I cross-referenced the HOA's bank statements with public records and found the smoking gun. Todd was funneling money to his personal accounts. Even better, I discovered Todd had been inflating contractors' fees, pocketing the difference, and splitting the profits with his buddy, a shady contractor who handled most of the HOA's maintenance. I compiled everything into a detailed report, complete with spreadsheets, photos, and notarized statements from neighbors who had seen Todd's antics firsthand. Step 4. The coup. I waited for the annual HOA meeting, which was typically a snooze fest attended by only a handful of homeowners. But this time I made sure people showed up. I spent weeks knocking on doors, explaining what Todd had been up to. I didn't share everything, just enough to get people angry and curious. On the night of the meeting, the room was packed. Todd started the meeting like usual, droning on about how difficult it was to manage the HOA and how much he'd sacrificed for the community. That's when I stood up. I calmly asked if he could explain some discrepancies in the budget. Todd laughed nervously and said, "I don't think this is the time or place." I replied, "Actually, Todd, it's the perfect time." I handed out copies of my report to everyone in the room. The mood shifted instantly. People started reading, whispering, and then shouting. Todd tried to regain control, but it was too late. I called for a vote to remove him as president. By the end of the night, Todd was out. Step 5. The final blow. After Todd was removed, we hired an independent auditor to go through the HOA's finances. They confirmed everything. Todd had embezzled over $50,000, mismanaged tens of thousands more, and committed multiple counts of fraud. We reported him to the police and filed a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. But it didn't end there. Todd's shady contractor buddy was also exposed and banned from doing business in the county. Todd had to sell his house to pay restitution and legal fees. His name became a running joke in the neighborhood, and no one would touch him professionally. With Todd gone, we restructured the HOA to prevent another dictator from taking over. We implemented term limits, required multiple board members to approve financial decisions, and created an online portal so all homeowners could access budgets and meeting minutes. The aftermath. Every time I walk past Todd's old house, now owned by a lovely family, I smile. The pool is open, the landscaping is beautiful, and the HOA fees are lower than ever. Todd, meanwhile, moved to a neighboring town, where he reportedly tried to join another HOA board, only to be laughed out of the room when someone Googled his name. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated, garnished, and savored. And there were some people asking about how Todd could be both president and treasurer in the story, and OP said it was a limited board by approval of board within bylaws of HOA documents, etc. Lots of ways for that to happen, unfortunately. And I'm always shocked with HOA stories. I know it's like we're only seeing the worst of the worst, and there's always comments after this one saying that they live in an HOA and it's alright, But in these stories, we're obviously seeing the worst of the worst in these situations. I wonder how many of them out there where there's people abusing their powers. I always find that really interesting. But what do you guys make of that one? Todd is out of there. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story is in the same subreddit r/pro-revenge from scaredycat1122. And it says, "My ex-mother-in-law sent her church friends to harass my daughters and I. I've now exposed her family to a church community, and she's getting shamed and shunned at church. My 46 female daughters, 17 and 15, have a strained relationship with my ex-husband's parents, 78 male and 80 female. My ex passed away in an accident last year, and we've had some major family drama since, due to his cheating and him leaving 2 boys born with his affair partner orphaned. She also died. Part of the drama has been my ex-in-laws trying to get custody of my daughters, and them also trying to live with us. First one we're going to court over, second one will never happen. Where we live, there's a weekend market with fresh produce, eggs, meats, and other products straight from farmers. This week was extra special since it was my youngest birthday. Since her party is later in the month, I decided to give her a budget and set her loose on the market to get whatever she wanted, mostly chocolate and sweets. After an hour, I did start getting worried, and just before I called her, she called me. She was crying, saying some weird people have cornered her. I ran to her with my oldest daughter to find 6 older women berating my daughter for being unchristian, for refusing to spend time with her paternal grandparents, or for wanting to be a good big sister to her poor orphaned baby brothers. My daughters are the ones that found out about my ex cheating and the babies, so they aren't fond of the kids. It's trauma, and they're working with a therapist. I got between the group and my daughter, telling my eldest to pay for the stuff her sister had and to go to the car. Then I turned to the women, some who I knew from when we went to Mike's in-laws church, and ripped them a new one. They told me I was the worst for refusing to obey my ex-in-laws like a good Christian wife. Barf. Eventually, the screaming turned too loud and we were all asked to leave the market. I met with my girls in the car. the women following me like a group of vultures. I managed to get in the car and drove away. After my girls went to bed, I got online to talk to another member of that church that I'm in good terms with. I told him what happened, and after he apologized, he told me what was going on. My ex-mother-in-law posted this massive story in the church's Facebook group about how horrible my daughters and I are, how we are leaving them homeless and penniless. They inherited my ex's personal bank account and his life insurance, and how my daughters don't even talk to them. She also accused us of being the reason she lost her grandsons. The boys are now living with distant relatives of my ex-husband. Basically, it was a sob story worthy of a Hallmark movie. And of course, they were all getting love and support from the more extremist members of their church. This church and its members are a bit annoying, especially with LGBTQ+ topics. But they have a small saving grace. They're incredibly strict about cheating. It's a big no-no, be it from a husband or a wife equally. Now, how did she get around blaming me about affair children without exposing the cheating? She claimed the other woman was our surrogate since I was unable to have more children, then said I didn't want the babies because they were boys, which is absolutely disgusting to be accused of. Well, I decided it was time to clean up this mess, and since I was mid-divorce when my ex died, I had all the evidence needed. And since the divorce wasn't completed, I didn't have any legal ramification for releasing all the evidence. I was off the next day and went to a print shop to get copies of all the delightful pictures of my ex cheating, his text conversations with his affair partner, the ones with his parents confessing to his cheating and getting support from them, my ex-in-laws harassing me about the divorce, and my coup de grace, all the emails and text messages of them bullying my daughters about their baby brothers. In one of them, they call my daughters bastards and telling them it was their fault that their father died since they told me about the affair and I began the divorce. This one was literally 2 days after my ex died. I paid extra for all this to be printed in beautiful high quality paper. And when I got home, I sat down for hours to make delightfully personalized binders. They looked like the little prayer song packets the church give for everyone to sing the hymns. The first picture when opening the binders is my ex and his side woman making out in our living room. Their faces are easy to discern, and the girl looks nothing like me. Different skin tones and hair color. Underneath I wrote ex-husband's name and affair girl's name, love story. I took them to the church before service. There's a desk in the back with the songbooks for people that need/forget their own, and they never check them. The gossip mill was quick and harsh. The names my ex and his affair partner got called in the Facebook was so bad the pastor himself had to get involved just to keep things relatively PG-13. People were angry at my ex-in-laws for their abuse to my daughters, but what made me laugh was that I was still in the wrong for the divorce. But it is understandable that I failed on my duties after the shock, and I possibly will one day return to the light, unlike my cheating husband and his Jezebel. They used another word I can't use here, I imagine. I got 2 apology letters in the mail from my girl and an invitation to join the church for support. As for my ex-in-laws, they got shamed into leaving the church. My ex-mother-in-law made a post on her wall about how alienated she feels and how no one cares for the elderly anymore. How she wished her great son was still alive since he would have taken care of her and her husband. With what money, I don't know, since I was the breadwinner. An explanation on the will. My husband had a will that named his parents as beneficiaries. As far as I was aware, he had told me he had named our daughters, not them. I never pushed for me to be the beneficiary, as my own will has my daughters as the beneficiaries, not him. Ugh, the part where there's like 6 adults ganging around 1 minor to berate her, calling her unchristian and all that sort of stuff. Just absolute scummy people. And I'm glad OP did expose all these people in the end because it's absolutely deserved. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Am I Overreacting subreddit from PlumJew301, and it says, am I overreacting for being upset that my 24 female boyfriend, 25 male, cancelled our romantic dinner to take his mum and sister, 25 female, instead? Throwaway for obvious reasons. Basically what the title says. My 24 female boyfriend, 26 male, of 3 years, had told me over the weekend that he had made reservations for a romantic restaurant on the lake. I was excited because our jobs don't allow us a lot of time to spend together as is. I packed a cute outfit and got everything ready this morning to change into after work. Then he texts me, I actually can't take you tonight. I'm going with my mum and sister, 25 female, instead. Now, normally, I'm pretty understanding, but this is weird, right? He kind of just brushed me off with a, well, they really wanted to go, so yeah, sorry. I have no problem with him spending time with his family, but this was supposed to be our date. Not to mention I had to prepare and pack everything since he lives about 45 minutes away from me. Now he's going to enjoy a romantic dinner with his mum and sister, and I'm going back home to be by myself. Am I the arsehole for being upset about this? Magdovus asked the OP, is this normal behavior for him? OP says, honestly, yes. I usually take the high road with things like this. He loves them a lot and likes to spoil them, but it's starting to affect me. Temporary says, is he actually going out with his mum and sister? Is this normal for your relationship? Has he always put his family first? Have you confirmed with his fam he's going out with who he says he is? All around weird. Opie says, I know it sounds weird, but this is normal. He's really close with them. I know he's not lying about it. Part of me wishes he was. I just think he's a family man, like a super family man to the point where I'm left behind. And there's a couple of updates to this story. The first one says, thank you for all your advice. I've read all the comments and I went ahead and pressed the issue a little further with him. To respond to some questions in the comments. Do you get along with his family? His family and I get along pretty well. We've been on trips together, gotten each other gifts for holidays and birthdays, the whole 9 yards. I've always had a creeping suspicion that they didn't like me because when I come over, they're super passive and don't really engage in conversation with me. When I ask my boyfriend, he says they're just reserved and shy. I think they just don't like that the only man in their life has a girlfriend. Someone said, is he cheating on you? Opie said, I can confidently say he's not cheating on me. He just has this weird relationship / mama's boy thing going on that has always slightly bothered me. He literally goes out of his way to show his appreciation for them. Sometimes it's endearing, but sometimes I feel like I'm on the back burner. Now, he said he understands where we went wrong and doesn't want me to feel like I'm the last option. Apparently he's been cancelling plans on them for a while, so he felt bad when they expressed interest in going to dinner with him tonight. Just them three. He said he actually made plans with them yesterday, but forgot to text me before I got all my stuff packed up. I'm still not satisfied with this response. So we'll have a talk in person after he enjoys his dinner with them. I'll be putting my foot down about his mum and sister thing. Like seriously, his sister is older than me, and he treats her like she's a 9-year-old. Thank you to all the women and men sharing their mother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law stories. You've given me confidence to stand up for myself. Also, thank you for the laughs. I tend to make light of situations. Your concern brought me some joy today. I felt crazy, but you all made me realize I need to stand up for myself right now. And sometime later, OP comes in with a further update and says, I wasn't going to update, but I am livid. To clear it up, from the beginning, his mum and sister knew that we had a date. They proposed the idea to get dinner with him. He told them that he already planned a date with me. They made sad faces and sighed. Oh, okay. That's when he felt bad for them. The fact that he even told me this is insane because why are 2 grown women guilt tripping you right now? I FaceTime called with my boyfriend last night, before dinner. We had a serious talk about his family and how I need him to start stepping up more. I told him I won't be option number 3 for my entire life, and threatened to leave if that was the case. He understood, agreed, and we moved on. He said his mum was just stressed about work and wanted to talk to him. Sure. Told him to enjoy his dinner and everything. Fast forward a few hours later, during supposed dinner time. I'm on FaceTime with him again and wondering why he's not at the restaurant. His mum and sister fell asleep. They literally just fell asleep. Here I am literally begging this man for 1 day a week to see him, and his mum and sister, who live with him, fall asleep. I told him straight up that they've disrespected his time and did all these theatrics for nothing. So yeah, that's the update. Thanks for all your tough love and good advice. I have a lot to think about today. Really, even the mean comments were good. I don't normally talk to people in real life about my relationship, so I appreciate the little bits of advice. Commenter says to OP, you deserve a better man. Stop begging him for attention. You've always been an afterthought for him. Find a guy who will prioritize you. Have some self-respect. Corfizz says, if you do want to stay with him, I recommend you make yourself scarce. Meet up with friends. Prioritize everyone else over him. Never call him first. Don't have time for him when he wants to meet. Make him really work for a date. It will completely shift the power balance, unless he really doesn't give a damn about you. But then, at least you will know. And after this one, I was just left wondering, would it ever change? I mean, this has been 3 years of this so far. Hope he was absolutely right to put a foot down at this moment, but can any of you guys see that changing at any point soon? I think it's just something that will continue going along. And if he does start to change, I think sister and mum is going to resent the OP even more and turn on her, which, do you want that drama in your life, honestly? Anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? And let's have another story. Now, this next story is from Pokemon Can't Forgive. It's from the subreddit Best of No Updates, and it says, my boyfriend sells Pokemon cards as his career, and 3 years ago I cost him thousands of dollars in merchandise. He proposed to me this weekend, but I can't forgive myself for what happened 3 years ago, and I don't think I can marry him because of it. And just to mention, this story went on during the pandemic, so just to let you know there. I've 27 female, been dating my boyfriend 26 male since 2016, and he proposed to me this past Sunday. I told him that my answer is probably yes, but I have to think about it. I told him there is just too much going on right now, with the pandemic and all, and I need some time to think about it. Here is some backstory. My boyfriend sells Pokemon cards for his job. He runs a big store where he holds events and stuff for local Pokemon leagues, and where there is a bigger event called Pokemon Regionals. He packs up his shop and goes to vend at those events. I don't really play Pokemon, and I've tried to get into it, but it just doesn't really appeal to me. But he really loves it, and it makes him happy, and he makes really good income off of it. So I really don't have any complaints. During the first stretch of our relationship, we were spending a lot of time with each other while I was unemployed. He was working from home at the time and had not yet established a physical storefront for his business. He was doing mostly online sales on some websites that he was registered in. But every couple of months he would pack up his minivan with as much stuff as he could hold and drive out of state to a Pokemon Regionals. I never got to go with him before because I always had work, but after I was laid off I didn't have anything else to do that weekend. I asked if I could come with him, and so I went with him. At the venue, he was amazing. There were like 100 people around his store booth at a time, and he kept zipping around to each of them. I wasn't working for him. I was just sitting in the back of his booth with my laptop open, just watching him and his other co-workers do his thing. Then the actual tournament started and everyone was sitting at the tables playing their games, and the amount of people who came to the booth was only a couple of people at a time, probably parents or some of the younger players. After round 4 or 5, my husband said he was going to get some food for us. The business had died down, and at the beginning of the rounds, we weren't getting much business since everyone was seated. So my boyfriend left and his co-worker handled the shop. After a few minutes, his co-worker asked if I could watch the shop while he ran to the bathroom. I figured why not? I've helped my boyfriend with his shop at his house before. I could handle this no problem. So I was alone in our booth and some kid around 15 to 16 years old comes up and he's wearing a Charizard hat. Except the Charizard was blue and black with blue fire, and he was wearing a shirt with Pikachu wearing a wrestling belt pointing to the sky. He points to some of the cards in the case. Jamin X, Jirak X, I'm going to pronounce these all wrong, Charizard X, and some older vintage retro cards like Pikachu Star, Entei Star, Raikou Star, Suicune Star, and base set Charizard. I had that card. I remember the cards. He asked for very well. He asked if he could see them so he could check the condition. So I took them all out of the case and handed them to him. He asked if we had any VS Seekers. I didn't know what those were at the time, so I told him to wait a moment and I'd check the trainer boxes we had behind me. When I turned back around, the kid was gone, and he had left with the cards I handed him. I freaked out and texted my boyfriend and told him we might have gotten robbed, so he said he'd rush over right away. My boyfriend got back before his co-worker did, and the first thing he asked was where his co-worker was. Then I told him what happened. I asked him how much he lost and if he was mad at me. And he told me that he wasn't upset with me. He said I got taken advantage of for being inexperienced and his co-worker should have never left me alone since I don't work for the store in the first place. And he also told me that the amount that was taken wasn't very much and it wasn't important. But I'm a member of the same Pokemon trading card game Facebook group that he and everyone else is a part of, and there was a whole post about it trying to find the kid responsible. One of the convention center cameras picked up the back of the thief's body, but I don't think they ever caught him since my boyfriend would have told me about it. But in the discussion, he had revealed that he lost almost $7,000 since I ended up handing the thief all the Shaman X and base set Charizards that were in the booth. This was 3 years ago. I have dreams every so often of me handing that kid these cards, and the kid has like a devil's face or my boyfriend's face, and I always wake up in tears. I think about this all the time. I haven't helped him sell cards in his store since, although I did support him and help him when he moved into a physical storefront downtown. I love him so much, and I know he has long forgiven me, but I don't think I can get married to him. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for this. I really need help and advice here. I'm afraid to talk to him about it. I'm afraid to say yes to the proposal, and I'm also afraid to say no. Nah, for me, that's an innocent mistake. He was just trying to help out, and it was the arsehole that actually did the stealing was the problem here. And I think this is just simply a situation where you talk to your partner about it and let him know that you're feeling guilty. He doesn't want you to feel guilty, and it came across to me that he didn't want you to feel guilty straight after the fact like that, and he was more concerned that, his work colleague left you to deal with that, knowing that there probably is people around events like that. I'm just saying there's opportunists in every walk of life, right, who try to take advantage of situations. But Loner Actual says, that sucks. It's a shitty situation, but money is the means to an end. The end is quality of life. You need money to create a situation in which you can be happy. If you ever find yourself sacrificing quality of life and happiness for money, you're doing it backwards. I'm going to go ahead and assume he's totally forgiven you here, because it would have been damn silly to propose if he hasn't. He's proposed because he thinks he'll be happy with you, meaning you're providing the end goal the money was for anyway. This seems to be bothering you way more than I think it should be. Did he spend a lot of time guilt-tripping you over it or something? If he did, you should maybe not think about marrying for a different reason. If not, forgive yourself. Shit happens, but it's not anyone's fault but the little turd who clearly came in with the intention of stealing. And for the love of God, tell him that this is why you are hesitating. Otherwise, he might think it's something else, which could wind up hurting him a lot more than those $7,000 did. Absolutely this, and I hope one day, I know it's been a while since, I hope one day that OP does return and tell us that they did get happily married after that. But I always find stuff like this very interesting in how our brain plays games with us, right? But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time, it always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.